Hello everybody. Today we're gonna be talking about abilities of Destiny 2, the most interesting as well as the most problematic aspect of the game. It is the source of a lot of many fun moments in the game, but at the same time a big pain in the bum for many, including Bungie themselves, who have the titanic task of balancing them all. This situation got increasingly worse after the subclass refresh, since abilities were exposed to previously unavailable synergies, went cuckoo for a bit, then later adjusted. While people waited for that adjustment to arrive, they caused their own bit of havoc across the game. Shadow Dive Stasis Hunter, anybody? Eh? Eh? In any case, the subclass refresh was an initiative undertaken by Bungie in order to modernize the system. After Beyond Light introduced a more modular structure for assigning abilities and bonuses with stasis. It added a bunch of functionality and keywords to abilities, as well as introducing aspects, specific abilities designed to confer certain benefits that represent a specific playstyle. In order to push that goal further, they also made all grenades available to all classes. Before, each class has their own grenades that play to specific ideas attached to them. Titans had aggressive grenades, Warlock had grenades that created strong effects, and Hunters had traps that they could place around the map. Now, they are all available to all classes, so that they can use them in whichever build suits them the most. This level of freedom granted players a lot of room for combining abilities in new and interesting ways that had greater impact on gameplay than the previous implementation. As a result, build crafting for these classes exploded, opening the way for some truly broken builds when some exotics were used. Solar Titan with Stintos, Worm Gods demolishes bosses, Starfire Warlock was throwing fusion names that they were going out of style inside of all the Radiants, Omnioculus Void Hunters had perma invis that they could share with other teammates, as well as have an increased survivability. While the power chip was nice, it created a lot of problems in terms of power scale, interactions, and build crafting, which in turn invoked the wrath of the Nerf Hammer. Some examples were Invis Hunters being an nightmare in PvP until their Nerf Hammer made them not so invisible. Bunk Titan saw all enemies as nails to hammer down until it got chronic 3-second shoulder pain after each hammer throw and pickup. Starfire Warlock used to be able to machine gun grenades on a well until the hammer said, "You gotta work for your grenades now." And quite frankly, it's pretty normal behavior for a live service game. Balance patches are somewhat required in order to maintain a certain level of performance of the player base in regards to overall content. You can't have people gravitate too much towards marketed broken builds, since that also kills the enjoyment of the overall game when they are overused. It's also done for the sake of any future content drop, since plowing through it like it's wet paper due to power creep can leave it feeling underwhelming. The problems I see in the current ability system is that they depend too much on stat allocation in order to use them more frequently without providing any additional benefit. They also feel bloated with keywords and behaviors at base, making any adjustment complicated since there are a lot more things that can go out of whack. So I came up with simple suggestions on how to hopefully improve upon it, based on how things have been so far. What came to mind is to rethink the relationship between abilities and stats. As a start, have them all have flat cooldowns, because their current implementation has a player focus on specific stats in order to maximize the uptimes of those abilities. The best example that comes to mind is how discipline, resilience, and recovery are premium stats always prioritized when farming for armor pieces, due to them being tied to the cooldowns of grenades, barricades, and rift respectively. Ability downtime not tied to stat makes it so that they can be compartmentalized better, hopefully making them easier to tune. This is more important in PvP since as far as I know the sandbox is universal, so any desired PvP centric adjustment needs to be made separately. They could also be a lot more freedom with what interactions can be created since stat allocation isn't so restricted to maximize ability uptime. Another thing that can be done is having stat thresholds alter abilities in specific ways. An example could be altering barricade shield size based on your resilience stat, discipline altering the area effect of grenades, or mobility increasing the distance of movement abilities. With stats having a more concrete purpose, abilities can be tailored in a more directed manner rather than take broad strokes. Another possible implementation of this idea is that thresholds provides augmentations for the functionality of abilities. like how wave grenades can have taller waves, or split into 3 waves a la dead messengers, or get even more waves. In theory, this grants a great deal of freedom to players and developers since adjustments can be made on the bonuses without impacting the base ability. All the while, the player gets more options for customizing their character based on preferred playstyle or level of performance. You could also get better control of what goes into PvP since alterations to ability behavior comes from an external source rather than being baked in. Another thing that can be done with those thresholds is the implementations of skill trees. Currently, the game sort of has a skill tree in the form of the artifact, only it's implemented in such a way that it offers universal bonuses and interactions after the players accumulate certain amounts of XP. Instead, those ability thresholds can be used to generate a certain amount of skill points that can then be used on skill trees rated on abilities, or maybe even a specific stat. This could result in a better distribution of ability modifiers, and if the idea of a seasonal artifact persists, it could be used to alter the skill trees every so often. That way, you keep the original idea behind the artifact, but you get more room to alter abilities in various ways and with greater control. Ultimately, it depends on the final shape of Destiny 3, and on whether Bungie decides to check out the formula or keep things similar to what is currently in place. Because while I might think these to be good ideas or suggestions, whether or not they are feasible will depend on the framework and foundation that Bungie dictates. And since anything goes at this stage in development, what other ideas do you guys have in regards to those abilities? Share them down in the comments below. Take care, people. Bye bye.